Hello guys, Charles here, welcome back to my channel. Those who've been watching me for a while know that I am currently working on phrasing in my own playing, and I'm going to share with you today a few little exercises that I've found really helpful. These are simple but very tricky. I've been working on these for about the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've made big improvements in that time, but they're still very, very difficult. They still don't feel comfortable. So I'll be interested to see how you guys find these exercises. So first of all, let's just quickly talk about what phrasing is. Phrasing is all the stuff that stops our sentences sounding like this. If we speak like a robot, it's because we do not have any phrasing. The same is true musically. Timing, tone, articulation, dynamics, different techniques, all help to combine in different ways to inform the emotional content of the music. That's the end goal here, is to try and really express. Now, when we're focusing on phrasing, we need to try our best to get the instrument out of our way. We don't want to be thinking about how to play the instrument, thinking about specific techniques when we play. We just want to play. And the way we get the instrument out of the way is to identify anything unique to the instrument, anything that it's trying to make us do, and practice it in the hope that when we play in public, this happens naturally in our playing. Again, people who've been watching me for a while know that I talk a lot about what happens in the practice room stays in the practice room. You practice with no expectation that it will ever translate into your playing. And when you are playing, you don't think about this stuff. The idea is, if it's working in your practice, it'll naturally come out in your playing. So today's exercise, we're going to be talking about the pentatonic scale. Now, I want to highlight an issue with the pentatonic scale that causes a problem with our phrasing. What we're going to do, we're going to start by playing up and down the pentatonic scale, and we're just going to pick every other note. Now, because the pentatonic scale, here it is 2 notes per string, that seems simple enough. However, it might not be quite as simple as that. Let's have a look. So if I pick every other note, I'm going to go pick, hammer, pick, hammer, pick, hammer, pick, hammer, pick, hammer, pick, hammer, pick. Oh, well, I'm about to change string, because there's not actually 2 notes on the top string, there's 3 notes on the top string, because we go 5, 8, and then 5 again to change direction. So the first exercise is to simply try and play the pentatonic scale and only pick every 2 notes. Now, in order to do this, we need to learn a new technique. This is called a hammer from nowhere. And all a hammer from nowhere means is we're trying to avoid, back to what I was talking about at the start of this video, the guitar wants us to pick when we get to a new string. A pick, however, is a different articulation. What if we are focusing on our phrasing and we don't want to pick at that point of our phrase? Well, we have 2 choices. We can either stay on the same string and do some legato work, either a slide, a hammer on, a pull-off, or we can move to the new string and just not pick. In order to do that, though, we have to hammer on with some velocity. Let's see how that sounds. Let's hear that one more time. Pick, hammer, 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 pick, slide, slide. So you'll have noticed that when descending, each new string starts with a hammer from nowhere. That's weird, that's an uncomfortable thing to do, and it's not necessarily something you're ever going to do in your playing, but it should be something that you practice. The main problem here I've found is the coordination between the 2 hands. We're so desperate to pick every new string that it's really difficult to unlearn that habit. But again, we don't want the guitar dictating how we play a phrase, so we need to unlearn that habit. Let's talk about the left hand for a second. Let me give you a few tips. The first thing with the left hand is you need to find the ideal point of your finger with which to strike the string. A lot of the time, people like to play with more like the pad of their fingers, the fingerprint. In fact, though, you want to use the fingertip, the very top of the finger, actually closer to your fingernail than you might be used to playing. Think of your finger as a nail, as in a hammer and nail, and you want to hammer with the very top of that nail. That should be the point that strikes the string. You wouldn't hammer a nail on the side, otherwise you're not getting that full transfer of the velocity. Which leads us to our second point. We don't need to hammer too hard, we need to find a sweet spot. If we hammer too hard, that note's going to be too loud and it's going to stick out. Equally though, we need to be aware that the right hand pick is probably going to be louder than the left hand hammer. So we need to try our best to find a balance, a sweet spot. Moving on to the right hand, you want to make sure that the plectrum, you find a spot along the length of the string where tonally it matches similar to the hammer on. So if I play on this string and I hear my pick and a hammer on, if I'm too close to my neck pickup here, my pick is giving me too dark a tone compared to the hammer on. There's a bit of brightness that hammer on, so I'm going to move further back. I think about there, where my picked note and my hammer on note have a similar tone, a similar timbre. It's going to be different on your guitar. So same with the right hand, you've got to get the velocity right, you've got to get the volume right, and try our best to make this as even as possible, which is so difficult. That's why I'm working on it. It's something that's so simple, yet really challenging. Let's try and play this as musically as possible. So you'll have noticed some notes there were louder than others. Now I might want to do that for musical reasons, but I was trying to play as evenly as possible there. So I need to continue working on that, and you'll find in your own playing it's not quite as easy as it seems. So we've picked the pentatonic scale there, phrasing groups of 2. Let's try playing it now with groups of 3. So every 3 notes we pick. So it's going to be pick, hammer, hammer, pick, hammer, hammer, pick, hammer, hammer for the entire exercise, no matter whether we're changing string or changing direction. All we're doing is going through the pentatonic scale, 3 notes on the top string, 5, 8, 5, and back down again. That's really tricky doing it that way, especially trying to do a hammer on from nowhere on the fret 5 of the top string to try and get that note to really sound. On the lower strings, you've got a bigger landing platform. It's like a gymnast trying to land on the beam. You've got a very big beam on the low string, so it's quite easy to get that note started with just the first finger. But on the top E string, that's going to require some practice. Of course, I am playing with a very clean tone here. The more distortion you start to add, then the easier it's going to get. And I tend to practice clean and often play distorted. You'll notice in my YouTube covers, I've normally got a little bit of distortion there, trying to get a saxophone sound. So of course, you make your life harder for yourself in practice and hope that it transfers over into a slightly easier scenario when perhaps you're playing with a bit of dirt. Let's try groups of 5. Again, pretty tricky that one. The less frequently you pick, the more open string noise you're susceptible to between strings. So that's also something I'm focusing on when I'm playing, is not only to get all the notes as even as possible, but try and get the open strings to be as clean and dead as possible when I move on to the new string. So I hope you got the general idea with that exercise, guys. This is very simple, but very difficult. In an upcoming video, I'll show you how to apply this same approach to 3-note per string and 4-note per string scales, but the pentatonic's a very good start. Let me know how you guys get on with these exercises. If you have any brilliant phrasing exercises that you can help me with, please comment them down below. It's really a fascinating and endless topic because it's really just the art of music. There's no right or wrong answers here. However, anything that you can think of that gets the guitar out of your way and you can try your best to not let the guitar dictate how you play. You dictate how you play by your phrasing decisions. Let me know any of those. And as always, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I look forward to seeing you very much in the next one. Cheers.
Roll up, let me embed a story you'll never forget. A drip, drip, but drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to